Hi there! Welcome back to the DutchRC channel for part 3 in our wing building series. And I'll start off with the finished product of this part of the series really. As you can see, our wing has changed a bit. I've sprayed some black paint onto the main wing, and I've put some red tape on the airfoil itself. Now, this part of the video is about this airfoil, the red part of the wing. And I'll first start off by telling you the why and the how of this airfoil part. Now, as you can imagine, an airplane like this, a model airplane, can be built without any kind of airfoil, and it can be made to fly that way, but it won't be very efficient. So you really would want to put some kind of airfoil on your wing. And in traditional airplanes, of course, you would have an airplane with a curve at the top, with the thickest part at about 30% of the wing, and then sloping downwards. Now, as you can probably see here, I have not done that. I've put a step on the wing. Here is a step of the thickness of the foam we're using. This is somewhat resembling the bottom of some speedboats. Now, why have I done this? This is called a KF2 Airfoil, and this it can be debated if this is as good or better or worse than a traditional airfoil, but the fact of the matter is that this works. But the more important reason is that it's easy to construct, and this being a guide into scratch building, I think it is wise to choose the easier option for now. If you're more experienced in building, you might opt for a more elaborate wing shape. That's up to you, of course, but know that this airfoil is easy to construct and will work. Apart from working well, it's also very strong. You can see that this wing is now quite stiff. The leading edge is very hard and durable, and it's very straight, has a nice rounded edge to it. So that's a reasoning for choosing this kind of airfoil for this series. Okay, now for some reason part of my recording got corrupted, so I'll have to redo that and talk you through part of the construction of the leading edge. Now, of course, this wing here and the airfoil are now two sheets of foam, as you can imagine, and one is folded up over the other. And how have I done this? I have tapered the leading edge of the wing itself, and I've tapered the leading edge of the airfoil. And I'll show you a diagram of this. If you can imagine, this is the foam of the wing. I have made a 45-degree cut over here, over the entire length of the leading edge. And I have made a 45-degree cut on the airfoil, and also, of course, over the entire length of the leading edge of this airfoil. Now, I haven't gone over the dimensions of the airfoil. It doesn't come too precise what dimensions you choose for this airfoil. You could go like 50% of your entire wing. I myself have gone to about 40%, which makes this length here 6 centimeters, that's 40% of the entire wing. This is 15 centimeters, this length, so 40% of that is 6. This part is now 6 centimeters. And for the base chord of our wing is 40 centimeters, and 40% of that is 16 centimeters. So this part here, the biggest, the widest part of your airfoil is in my case 16 centimeters. Once again, you can easily go to 20% over here. It's up to you, will work just fine. And okay, I won't show you how to cut a tapered edge. I'm sure you can do it. Oh, well, as a matter of fact, I can show you a little bit of that. If, for instance, this would be the leading edge of your wing, you take your ruler and place it along the edge of that wing, right on the edge. From my perspective, I can't see the wing beyond my ruler anymore. Then you take your knife and you slot it in at about a 45% angle, and press down on your ruler and then run your knife through the foam at about a 45% angle. It doesn't come super precise, but it's nice. Oh, it's not gone through all the way. There. And that has left me with a tapered edge like this. And I've done that 4 times. Twice on the wing, of course, on the top of the wing. Once again, here is the wing, this is the top of the wing, and you taper it down from the top. And for the airfoil itself, of course, the other way around, you taper it down at the bottom. So the airfoil will be flipped over once you've taped it to the wing itself. Yeah, let's get to the taping and on part of the airfoil now. Like I said, I've shaved down the edges over on this side of the wing as well. This is tapered down now, and this airfoil is tapered down as well. So all sides are done, and I've added some red wing tape to the airfoil, just for looks, nothing else. Doesn't make the plane stronger or anything. So next step would be to install those airfoils, and we'll tape them to the wing in this way, like so. And after we've done that, we'll just fold them over. So we'll fold the 2 airfoils back onto the wing, and that will make for a very strong and straight and nicely rounded leading edge. And it's really simple to do. I'll show you right now. Put that one away. I'll do this one right now. I'll just flip over the wing, and I'll flip over this one as well, so that I don't mistakenly glue it on the wrong way around. Then I take my glass reinforced tape again. You really will need strong tape for this part of the build, as there will, once you fold the airfoils over, there will be quite a lot of stress on this tape. So use some good tape for this part of the build. Okay, now I put the tape on the leading edge of the wing itself. Use about half the width of the tape, of course. The other half will be on the airfoil. And stretch it up as much as you can. Of course, this being glass and reinforced tape, it doesn't stretch really much, of course. That's what you're using it for. Then I trim it off. If I can get my knife through this stuff. There. And trim off the excess over here as well. I'm just following the line of the wing here to when I trim it off, and then I lead it back out. There we go. Okay, flip it back over again. And of course I've got the sticky part of the tape right here now, of course. Then I take the airfoil, and you can imagine that it's of importance that you line it up with the wing. Well, especially at the tip here. You don't want it to extend past the tip of the plane. Okay. Alrighty. Doesn't matter if you have a little bit of gap between it. That'll work out just fine. Alright, flip it over once more to press the tape down before you fold it over, otherwise your tape will come loose. There we go, that should be just fine. Now, like I said, let me quickly trim this part out as well. There. Gone. Now you can fold this airfoil up onto the wing, and the first time you do this you will need to use quite a bit of force, because like I said, there's a lot of tension at this leading edge at the moment. I'm checking now to see how well it lines up with the center of my wing, and to tell you the truth, it lines up perfectly. I'm about 0.5 millimeter off, so that means I have to pull this part up a little. There. Okay, well, you could, to make things easier for yourself, place a few books on this for the night, for instance, and then the next day it'll have less tension. As you can see, it really likes to pop up still, because there still is a lot of tension here. That's okay though. If you don't want to wait, that's fine too. You can hot glue it down right away, and things will be just fine. Now, if you are building along with me, you can clearly feel and see how nicely rounded this leading edge is now. It's super smooth, and it should be super straight as well, which it is. And once you've hot glued both airfoils down onto the wing, this will make for a very strong, strong wing. You will not be needing any kind of carbon fiber for this. Okay. Off camera I'll do the same with the tape and the airfoil on the other side of the wing, and then I'll come back to you. Hold on. There. As you can see, I've got both the airfoils attached to the wing now, and this will be a good time to dry fit everything. So I fold back both airfoils, and at this point I check the gap over here. Now, if you find yourself to have an overlap on these two, so you can't fold them back both, just trim off one of the two a little, it'll be just fine. Now, as you can hopefully see, I've got my airfoils lined up here perfectly, really, and I've got a gap between them of 1 millimeter, if that. Actually, I would have liked to have a little more of a gap, and what I always do is once I've glued the two airfoils down, I fill the gap with hot glue. That'll give the nose a bit more rigidity, but well, this worked out really well in this case. So well, next thing we'll do is hot glue these airfoils to the wing, and for that it's handy dandy to have a big ruler like so to press it down evenly, like so. You can also use some large books, but this works out well for me. Especially the tip over here is hard to press down well, especially. But to aid you in the gluing of this, just work it down a few times. It'll loosen up a little by doing so. So I'll just do just that. Press it down a few times. Okay, let me get my hot glue gun and then we'll glue this puppy down. There, hot glue gun is ready. It's nice and warm, and especially in gluing a larger surface such as this, it's good practice to have a spare hot glue rod at the ready. You don't want to run out of hot glue in the middle of this job and then try to find your next rod. And of course I've got my ruler ready to press down on the airfoil. And okay, what we'll be doing is putting a line of hot glue into this ridge we've created, this ridge over here, and that'll reinforce the leading edge of our wing. Make it nice and hard and stiff, and of course I'll be putting hot glue along the perimeter of the airfoil and not on the very edge, because then it'll spill out over your wing and it'll look nasty. So keep about a distance of a centimeter or half a centimeter, and then it won't spill out all over the place. So let's get cracking then. I always like to run my hot glue gun towards me so I can see what I'm doing. There. Do make sure before you start out that your hot glue gun is really hot and ready for this. Alright. Run along the perimeter, and actually I am going to run out of hot glue in the middle of this job. Okay, put a little in the middle of the airfoil. Alright, that should be more than enough. Fold this thing back, and put my ruler on it. And actually there's some hot glue spilling through my tape here. That's no big, it's already gone. Another bead creeping out there. Alright. Make sure you put pressure on every part of the airfoil. And this will be done in about a minute or two, then the hot glue will be cooled down enough. Of course you can just feel it through the foam. Okay, I'm sure watching glue dry is not the best time you'll have on YouTube, so I'll skip that part and I'll get back to you when it's dry. There, and I've actually glued down both airfoils by now, as you can see. Of course the other one went 100% the same. Now, as I mentioned before, you can be left with a little bit of gap between the airfoils here, and I have about a gap of 1 or maybe half a millimeter over here. Great. I just take a scrap piece of foam board, put it over here, take my hot glue gun and run a liberal amount of hot glue over it. There, and I then take the scrap piece and run it over the hot glue. Hartstikke. And that'll seal up that gap nicely, and it'll bond the two halves, the two airfoils, because you've now created a layer of a film, really, of hot glue over the edge. Make it nice and strong. So, well, that's the airfoil part of the build, really. As you can see, if you have built along, this has created a nice round airfoil, nice and smooth, nice and aerodynamic, and it is super strong and straight. And as you can see, and if you've built along, you can feel, this entire wing it has a little bit of flex in it, but it's quite stiff at this moment. Now, if you've never done this folding and gluing stuff, you might want to consider first practicing on a few spare pieces that you've cut off in previous parts of the build. That'll well, make you have a nicer edge, I think, so if you practice it. I've done quite a number of these kinds of leading edges, so I'm familiar with what can go wrong. So if you want to practice a bit beforehand, no biggie. Okay, and that concludes this part of the build, really. In the next part we'll be installing the motor, the servos for the elevators, and what else? Well, the ESC and the receiver, and maybe even touch upon the CG of the airplane. But well, thanks for watching, of course, for this episode. I'll make sure to have the next episode online in the few coming days. Stay tuned for that, and see you then. Bye bye.